Welcome to Lesson 3. Now that you've learned about the tiles, groupings, naming conventions, and how to read the National Mahjong League card, we're going to learn about all the rules needed to play at a beginner level. The National Mahjong League, an association formed in 1937, brought standardization to American Mahjong and the game we all know and love today. Since this lesson covers basic beginner game rules, I recommend you purchasing Mahjong Made Easy, the League's complete book of rules, and considering my book, Unlocking the Secrets of American Mahjong. You can find the purchase links in the video description. I would also like to mention that if you buy at least one card from the National Mahjong League, you will get their annual bulletin that often has changes to the most recent Mahjong Made Easy publication. In American Mahjong, the objective is to complete one of the hands on the National Mahjong League card following the variations allowed. At the beginning of the game, the starting player, East, picks 14 tiles while all others pick 13. This gives East the advantage of one extra tile, but they even out to 13 after their initial discard. You will see and hear more about this in the next lesson. The game revolves around picking and discarding tiles. At the beginning of your turn, you will pick a tile from the wall and place it in your rack. By placing it fully and seated in your rack, it locks in your turn. This is important because it then prevents any other player from calling a previous discard. Keep in mind though, it is not a race to get the tile into your rack. So pause a beat or two while you pick and place the tile in your rack. Once you've placed the tile in your rack, you would then proceed to discard. As you learned in Lesson 1, a discard must be named. Allow me to demonstrate.
Two dot.
Green. These are the wall tiles from where everyone will pick tiles. Your turn begins when you either pick a tile from the wall or call a discard, and that's going to be explained next. On the card, hands marked with an X, which also means exposed, is an indication that you can call a discard to make an exposure that completes a part of your hand. To alert everyone that you want a tile that has been discarded, the more proper terminology is to say call, but you can also say, hold up, I want that, I'll take that. And if you're not sure if you want it, just say, hold up, or give me a minute, I have to decide if I want that tile. Here you will see another player has discarded a 6BM. You have your eye on a hand that requires a 6BM, and you are ready to commit to that hand. You verbalize your call and pick up the 6BM and place it on your rack, and that would be the flat part of your rack. After picking up the tile, you would then take the other tiles from your rack and place them on top alongside the 6BM that you called. This will now complete your pung, kong, or quint. To finish your turn, you would discard an unwanted tile from your rack. Take a look as the entire process is demonstrated.
6BAM.
Call. North. Now let's just say that this was your second exposure and you are now putting up another grouping. If you do put up more than one exposure, it is courteous to space the exposures. This will prevent confusion about which tiles belong to which grouping. Hands marked with a C means concealed or closed. These hands require you make the hand on your own without calling and exposing. These hands are harder to make as a result, since you can't utilize any of the discards thrown, but rather you must pick them in yourself. Now let's talk about jokers. As mentioned in Lesson 1, there would be a lot more to learn about jokers. The joker exchange process has evolved, especially in tournament play. I know you're far away from that, but I wanted to mention it. It is important to announce your intentions and perform a hand-to-hand exchange. The procedure is required in most tournaments. If you failed to announce that you wanted to do a joker exchange and placed your tile on the table, assuming someone might know what you are doing, that could be construed as a discarded tile. You especially don't want to let this happen because you don't want to miss out on valuable jokers. The steps for the joker exchange are as follows. May I have your joker, please? You hand your natural tile that you have to the player that has the joker in their exposure. That player will then give you the joker and take the natural tile and replace it in their exposure. Watch how this is done.
4 crack.
Oh, may I have your joker, please?
You may.
Thank you. Please note that a joker exchange must be done after you've started your turn, which occurs when you either pick a tile from the wall or call a discard. Regardless of whether the joker exchange is done after a pick from the wall or after you call for a discard, the joker must go into your rack to be used as part of your hand. In other words, if you call a tile for exposure and then do a joker exchange, the joker cannot be used as part of the exposure. The only exception is if you do a joker exchange and the exchange is your Mahjong tile, you may proceed to call Mahjong for the win. You will understand more about self-picked wins during the bonus scoring video later on, so keep this in mind. If you do a joker exchange that gives you Mahjong, it is considered a self-picked win. In case you are wondering, joker exchanges are allowed from your own rack without verbalizing it, although some players prefer to do so. I'd also like to mention that when putting up an exposure with jokers, it's a good idea to nest the jokers between the tiles, or you could look at it as the tiles hugging the jokers. You can see an example of this in the picture here. Lastly, there are various reasons why a player's hand may be called dead. However, unless you're at an advanced level of play and strategically want to call your hand dead, the general rule is that another player should call it. Therefore, until you learn more about strategy, if you know your hand is dead, meaning you can't switch to another hand, play defensively, being very careful not to give another player Mahjong. Playing defensively means that you take measures to be sure that the tile that you are discarding is not an obvious tile needed by another player that could potentially give them Mahjong. Learning how to identify safe tiles, which are tiles that will not give another player Mahjong, is something that will take time, and you will learn as you become a better Mahjong player. I will also be discussing this in more depth in my advanced beginner and intermediate courses coming in the near future. This pretty much covers Lesson 3. Now I understand that in Lesson 1, 2, and 3, you've had a lot of information thrown at you. Trust me when I say it will all come together as we proceed in the future lessons. And I'll see you in Lesson 4 soon.